Hey guys, so today we are working with wheel pose or Urdhva Dhanurasana. Now when I first started working this pose, it was my arch enemy because it didn't feel right in my shoulders, it crunched my lower back, and I just did not like it at all. But I finally got some good instruction from my teacher, Sara Strother, and now this pose feels open and strong instead of forced and crunchy. And so that's what I'm going to teach you today. So let's hop on the mat. I'll start by demoing. I'll just show you the pose first, and then we'll talk about some alignment cues. We'll talk about some modifications, and then it'll be your turn to try it out and let me know how it goes. So I'm going to hop on my mat. Scoot these out of the way for the moment. Again, so this first round, I'm just going to demo very minimal cueing. So my feet are about hip distance apart. I take my hands to the outer edge of my mat, fingers pointing in. Reach my elbows towards the sky. And then tuck my tailbone, lift my hips, gently come onto the top of my head. Tippy toes. Then straighten my arms. Now there's days still where I can't lower my heels, but I prepped myself pretty good for this video, so there we go, the heels are down, and then I'm jutting my chest forward. Tuck the chin, and come down. All right, so that's wheel pose, but let's talk about some alignment cues here. So we're gonna go over three main ones I want you to focus on. First, our pelvis. We want to be lengthening our tailbone down and kind of wrapping it up into our inner thighs to keep our low back open, right? Because we don't want that crunchy feeling. Secondly, before we finally press into our hands and lift up, we want to take our shoulder blades into our chest to really activate our spinal muscles and use our back muscles to help lift us up and not just our arm muscles. All right. And then lastly, just like bridge pose, we want to keep our thighs parallel. If we start swinging our knees out to the side, that crunches to the back side of the pelvis and our SI joint, again, creating that low back pain. So I'll demo this one more time, talking through those three main alignment cues, and then we'll get into some modifications. All right. Now this is a lot of wheel pose for me, so let's see here. So my feet are hip distance apart. I'm already looking at my thighs, making sure my thighs are parallel. Hands to either side of my head. And then for my tailbone, before I even lift up, I press my low back into the ground, and that automatically starts to wrap my tailbone up towards the ceiling. Okay? Now I work to keep that as I come to press onto the top of my head. Little weight on my head. I adjust my hands and feet if I need to. Now before I straighten my arms, I'm going to activate the tips of my shoulder blade forward into my chest. Squeeze into my inner thighs. Straighten my arms, keep pressing my shoulder blades forward, and gaze down. Tuck my chin, and drop down. All right. So, three alignment cues. Wrapping the tailbone up to keep the low back open. Thighs stay parallel, again, to keep that low back of the pelvis SI joint open. And then lastly, the shoulder blades activating forward into your chest to recruit those strong upper back muscles to help you lift yourself up and not just have to use your arms and joints. Now, some modifications. So the first main modification, especially if you have really achy shoulders and you just don't feel like this overhead position is accessible for you at the moment, bridge pose. Bridge pose is a great modification. I do have another video on bridge pose, so you can go back and take a look at that for some good alignment cues and learning how to do that nice and strong. The second modification is incorporating blocks. Now, if this is the first time you're working with this pose, I recommend taking these blocks up against the wall, just in case the blocks are, your mat's a little slippery. You don't want the blocks sliding out from underneath you. But I will do this without the wall. My mat is pretty sticky, so I should be good. So you can take your blocks on your mat, and then either your feet can come onto your blocks, and then just, just like anything else, just like we did in normal wheel pose, wrap your tailbone up, start to come up, and then you activate your shoulder blades, thighs parallel, and press up. The nice thing with the blocks is it helps you lift the rest of your body, creating more space to move into that arc position that wheel pose creates. Now, if you want to use it to prop up your hands, the nice thing with this, if you do have a wall and you have that little ledge on the bottom that kind of pokes out, you can prop your blocks up on there on an angle. So if you do have issues with the flexion, the deep flexion of the wrists, if the blocks are on an angle against the wall, the flexion of your wrist isn't going to be as extreme. So that's a nice modification for wrist issues. But again, you can just use them flat on the ground. You take your head in between the blocks. And again, just coming into bridge pose like we have been the last few times. Wrap the tailbone. Find the top of your head very lightly, tippy toes. Adjust the hands if needed. Activate the shoulder blades. And press up. Lower the heels if you can. And then lower down. All right, so that's the second modification, using blocks to help you create more lift in the pose. The last modification, I'll just talk to you very briefly. If you do feel crunchy in your low back, your shoulders, one option you have, again, I'll just kind of show you here just in the seated position. Feet hip distance apart is ideal, all right? But if you just feel like there's a lack of range of motion, you can step your feet about outer hip distance apart. And if that still seems a little restricted, you can turn your toes out at about 30 degrees. Now, remember, we still want our thighs parallel, so there still has to be a midline hug of your thighs, even if your toes are turning out and your feet are a little bit wider. Remember to just keep that hugging of your inner thighs towards each other so your knees aren't splaying wide, okay? Same thing with the hands. So again, I'm just going to mock this up here. So if you're starting with shoulder width distance and you're just really not getting anywhere, you can step your hands a little bit wider. You can turn your peace fingers out a little bit more, and that's really going to give you some more range of motion in the shoulders. All right, so what did we go over here today? Wheel pose, 3 alignment cues, wrapping the tailbone up towards the ceiling, activating our shoulder blades to create that arc and utilize our back muscles to help lift you up, thighs parallel. Modifications, bridge pose. I have another great video up here that you can go take a look at after this if that's a modification you're looking for. Blocks underneath your hands or feet to help create more lift and space to move into the pose, or playing with the width of your hands and feet to see if that gives you more movement and mobility through your hips and shoulders. All right, guys, now it's your turn to go try it. Take a picture, take a video, tag me on social media, and let me see how your practice is going. If you do want some more in-depth and customized instruction, I do offer Zoom private sessions. I also have a weekly Zoom yoga schedule as well. And I also have an online studio, so if a set schedule doesn't quite work, you can use that studio to do yoga anytime, anywhere. All those links and information is down below in the description. And just go ahead, reach out to me, and I will be happy to get something set up. All right, have a great day. My cats are fighting. Namaste.